And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We can meet our destiny to build a land here that will be for all mankind a shining city on a hill.
You're listening to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show, only on Revolution Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Jim White and Jason Van Tatenhove.
The crusade for freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism.
Please hang up and try again.
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, and welcome back to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show, Hour 2. Well, folks, as I try to do every second hour, we try to encourage everyone to support this radio station. It really is imperative. As we are growing leaps and bounds, it costs more and more money for us to stay online, and we're getting that information out there. We're bringing in great guests like General Valley. And if you like what you're getting, whether it's with our show or any of the other shows that you're listening to, it's imperative that you do your part to help keep us on the air. We are all listener supported. We do this as a labor of love. None of the producers or on-air personalities get paid at all. So please help us stay on the air. Help us bring you this great resource that we have here with the alternative media. And go to freedomslips.com and click the donate button. It really does make a difference. So, all right, Jim.
So you don't get paid, Jason?
I don't.
Oh man, that sucks.
I go build cabins to do that.
Yeah, right on. Coming up here on the second hour today, we are going to have. Did we already make this announcement? Jeff Ball, private
we
Attorney
touched
General.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly in the first hour, but go ahead.
Yeah, as Jason said, we met this gentleman and his colleague down in Bunkerville. How's that, Jason? Nevada.
Much better.
And he's a very, very, very intelligent, very mild-mannered, very articulate guy who's really, if people don't know really what a private attorney general is, it'd be good to listen to the second hour here because the way I was told, there's three types of attorney generals. There's like the federal attorney general, like Eric Holder. There's your state attorney general. And then there's a private attorney general. Now, I don't know if he certainly wouldn't have as much power as Eric Holder does, I wouldn't think. Unless he can, run guns illegally across the border with immunity. Other than that, I think it's a good thing. Is that you Skyping me, Jason?
Yep.
Okay.
It was.
I thought it was Jack. He's probably do you have him linked up yet, Jay? Do you have Jeff linked up on Skype?
Yeah, we're good to
go. Bring him up. He's ready to
go. All right. Let's see here.
So did you? What are you gonna do any? Wait, is this him?
We're adding him right now.
Okay.
You chat too.
Are you call? Okay, I can't hear if you're calling him.
That's all Skype. So I believe Jeff, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Jeff, welcome to the Liberty Brothers Radio Show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, Jeff, how you doing? This is Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Joining me on the line is Jeff Ball. I'm gonna read your bio here, Jeff. I'm gonna do the best I can. Born in 1967 in a small town in East Tennessee. He's 49 years young. Self-taught. He had 15 years of law study. Specialized in contract, common law, and currencies. Just started interfacing with the public a year ago. He is a common law grand jury supporter. No political party involvement. a secured party creditor, and a private attorney general. Conservative yet open-minded, he's a dog lover, an avionics specialist, and a manufacturing engineer planner by de facto trade. Jeff Ball, thanks for joining us today on the Liberty Brothers.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're quite welcome.
So what would you like to talk about today?
Well, if you could, for the benefit of the listeners out there that may not be aware of you or your work, if you could just give us a brief background on yourself, why you decided to. Now, I was told, Jeff, that there's 3 types of attorney generals. There's the federal attorney general, the state attorney general, and then the private attorney general. If you could just tell a little bit about yourself and maybe kind of give us a little bit of a background on what exactly is a private attorney general, because I think that, like myself, before I met you, most listeners probably don't know what that is.
Well, thank you. Yes. Well, the private attorney general is a lawyer, somebody who's well-versed in the law. And we operate from the de jure side of the fence. As most of your listeners probably know, there's de facto and there's de jure. De facto is what most people interface with every day, and that's the other attorney generals. But the private attorney generals deal with, I guess, are the fighters for the private side. So,
what are where are you on the map, and what's the private attorney general group's 4 corners of the map, if you could?
Okay. Well, I have a little bit of a philosophy that I've put together over the years. And one thing that I see that's being missed and not a lot of people are talking about out there is that you have to know where you're at on the map, and you have to know who you are before you do anything out there in the commercial world. So establishing yourself and your status and standing is very important. And knowing where you're at on the map is very important. So here's the PAG's 4 corners of the map. Jurisdiction is 1. Number 2 is presumption. Number 3 is consent. And number 4 is injured party or claimant. So let's say that the scenario is that you're dealing with the courts and you haven't injured anybody, yet you're being pulled in and being somebody's, the government or somebody's making a claim on you. Well, one thing we have to remember is that we don't have to give jurisdiction, and that's ours to retain. So if we don't want a court or a judge to decide something for us, we don't have to give that consent. There really are no judges. They're all administrators, and administrators get their power from your consent. It's like both parties of go ahead.
Well, before you go on for a second here, let me stop for a second, because I think what you're saying is just a sort of a revelation, and I don't want to just roll over it. Are you saying that you retain your personal jurisdiction, and the only way someone else can take it from you is if you give it to them, pretty much, right? I mean, are you saying that you don't have to appear if you get sent a summons? You don't have to appear before the judge? I mean, is that the type of stuff you're talking about?
Well, here's the deal. The question you have to ask yourself, and this is about figuring where you're at on the map, is have you injured anybody? Okay, so you're going to fall in either one of 2 categories here. This is the tree, the fork in the road. Have you injured somebody? Is there someone, a flesh and blood human being, who has brought a claim against you that you've injured? And if the answer to that is no, okay, if the answer is no, and the only person who has charges against you is not a person but a corporation, whether it be a municipality or a regular corporation. If the answer is you haven't injured anybody, then why would you give up jurisdiction?
If you could just, there might be a disconnect. Could you explain what the map is? You don't mean like a physical map, right? What is the map?
Well, since there's 4 corners to this theory, or not really theory, but presentation that I have here, jurisdiction is important. Presumption and consent and is there an injured party? If you haven't injured anybody, then you're not in contract. Okay? There is no contract, and there is no injury, so there is no case. If there is no case, there's no jurisdiction. So, if you go in and you give jurisdiction and you allow the presumption to continue that there is a contract, then you will most likely always be presumed against in the wrong way, so for the other guy. So,
this sounds to me like it's sort of, I say complicated, but it sounds to me like it. I did a recording for a guy named Ron Gibson here. I'm not sure if you know Ron, sometime back, and he talked about, for example, all of the municipalities are incorporated, and he made a statement to me that, and then that's why we have our names in capital letters. He made a statement under me, and you're an attorney. He made a statement at the conference. I'm going to ask you. He said that there's a rule in the law that unless you cannot rule over something unless you've created it. You don't have any jurisdiction over it unless you've created it. And he says that's why each one of us have all capital names, because we are the state, the county or the state's incorporated, and we are more or less like employees, I guess, in lack of a better term. I mean, you get where I'm coming from on that, Jeff?
I do, and let's break that down. This is kind of a new way of thinking. It'll be new for a lot of people, but it can be done. And once you get it, it's very simple. Okay, it's just getting there is the hard part. But just in the statement that you said there, somebody claims that if they create you, that they control you. Well, that's a great declaration, but did you agree to that contract?
No, I didn't agree to it.
Okay. And that's the presumption part. See, they're going to presume that you're in contract with all these different municipalities and entities. All right. And if you allow them to continue to presume this and you don't rebut it and withdraw your consent, then that's why a lot of people are losing on their battlefield.
He told me that Jason, I know I'll let you jump in here in a minute. He told me that he hasn't had a driver's license in like 20 years. Are you saying that because you go in there, and I'm just using this as an example, let's say you go in there and because you sign up for a license and sign your name on all the proper documentation, are you at that point technically like you're buying in, you're kind of giving in, and you're like you're admitting that they have control over you? Is that kind of what you're saying in a way?
Well, let's look at it from a contractual side. Okay, we go in and we submit to that contract because it's widely held that you have to have a driver's license. Well, I'm not telling everybody, your listeners, to run out and do it with your driver's license. I still have one. But you got to understand that the driver's license is for a commercial capacity. And if you're not driving and you're not making money and you're not in a commercial capacity, then you're not driving, you're traveling.
That's what he said too. He said the same thing. He said a driver's license is only for someone that's a commercial entity. He also said, and this is going to be a shocker to anybody that's listening that's with the government, he also said that people like regular cats like us are not subject to income tax because we're not federal employees. Are you familiar with that? You're probably very familiar with that as well, right?
Well, yeah. If you get down in Title 26 and you break down the definitions, you'll see it. But again, let's hit it from a contractual side. Now, I'm not telling everybody not to stop paying their taxes tomorrow either. So, but just look at it like this: the IRS is presuming. There's the word again, presuming that you're okay with the contract. Well, what contract? Is there a signed contract that you agreed to pay anything to the IRS? I don't have one. I'd like to see one.
No. So you filling out your let's say you work at a large corporation, you fill out your tax forms. Is that the same as agreeing to a contract? Or is that basically the same as agreeing to a contract?
Well, it's evidence of a contract. It's not the contract. And there's maxims about contractual relationships. One of them is there has to be equal consideration. Another one is there has to be full disclosure. So in other words, that means you have to know exactly all the elements to the contract for both parties. And, if you don't know that, that voids the contract. There is no contract. And if there's no equal consideration, what that means is, are you profiting off of the agreement and the contract, or is one side of the party contract profiting more than you are? Well, most of us can say that, we're not getting a cut of the cake as citizens or people, men and women on the land. Okay, so technically, by contractual law, it's an equal contract, and therefore it's null and void.
Now, Jeff, this Jason, and I'm sure, much like myself, this is very new material for a lot of our listeners. Maybe not a lot of them, but some of them anyway. What's the best way? Because I've kind of grown up under the assumption that what is supposed to be law, they can come after you for and whatnot, and not really having a good understanding as to how things are working. Just kind of, as you said, presuming that the system is doing things how they should be. What's one of the best ways people can start becoming better educated about this whole topic?
Well, unfortunately, there's no one place to go and get all this information. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about these things today, because these things here that I'm talking about are key and pivotal. And if you don't have them, if they're not the base of everything that you're doing in the commercial world, this is why so many of us are failing. This stuff is your foundation. You have to know this frontwards and backwards. And once you get it, once the light bulb goes off, it's not difficult. You see, we've been taught to think that law is complex and difficult. It's not. The basic concepts of law are not difficult. It's all the statutes and codes and regulations that they throw in afterwards that get confusing. And really, once you realize that codes and statutes all are consensual laws, in other words, you have to consent to them for them to apply to you.
Now, is what you're talking about rooted in our Constitution? I imagine it probably is, and if so, can you go over that portion of it, if you don't mind, for us, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. Up in Washington State, there's some very good code up there, and one of the codes up there written, I think it's 42.030.56, I believe. It clearly states that the people of Washington are not slaves to the public servants, and the public servants are not their masters. I'm paraphrasing, but it does use that verbiage and that language. Okay, so it's very important, because a lot of us believe that so many things are law, but it's not law. Let's take the U.S. Code, for example. Most everybody is charged under U.S. Code, okay? But see, it's called U.S. Code because it's not law. If it was law, it'd be called U.S. law, okay? It's code. And when you understand what code and statutories and regulations and rules and public policies and things, they're not law. That's why they're code and statute, and therefore they require the consent of you to have effect. So if you really want to look at the U.S. Code right now, okay, tell me what law is governing everybody.
Is it color of law? Is that what a code is? Really, is a color of law?
Yes, it is. It is. It is a color of law. And what that term means is that it looks like law, it talks like law, walks like law, but really it has no power over you unless you give your consent. And that's what we're not doing in the courts when we go in and there's no injured party. Now keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily work if you've injured somebody. If you've got somebody that says, hey, you stole my car, or you broke my fence down, or whatever the problem may be, then you've got an injured party, and a lot of these things that I'm talking about does not apply to that. However, if you do not have an injured party, and if it's a municipality that's trying to claim that you've caused harm, now that's what I'm talking about. Okay, you can withdraw. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to just ask, so if someone is having something brought up against them, do they need to find an attorney in their area that is versed in the way that you are? I mean, is that kind of the best route to take, or do they need to try to represent themselves? What's the best way for people to go about figuring out how to learn more about the system? Is it through an attorney? Is it?
Well, attorneys won't agree with much of what I'm saying here. A lot of what I'm saying, it'll be new information to attorneys, and they won't understand it. Perhaps some of your contract attorneys will get what I'm saying, but even some of your judges might not understand what I'm saying here, but a lot of them will. So going to an attorney and asking him for this type of information, you're going to get laughed at, because that's how strong the illusion is. They've had well over 100 years in this country alone to establish all this.
Do you think, Jeff, tell us about kind of following up with Jason's question.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to hit this head on, like it sounds like you're doing, is the best? I mean, I know you have the PAG, the Private Attorneys General Group. Is that correct? The PAG?
Yes.
Is that
yes.
right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it safe to assume that anyone that was a member of that PAG organization would have the same type of mindset that you would have, and would know the same type of contract law and things that you know? Is that pretty safe to assume?
Well, any private attorney general should know these things that I know, but I'm pretty aware that there's some out there that don't have might not have a good clear or the clarity that I have on it. So the PAG is just mainly right now a consulting firm, and we consult to other private attorney generals and to other people who just want, who have basic questions, and they're trying to clear away all the mud and all the disinformation that's going on out there.
Go ahead, Jason.
Now, again, kind of coming back, if someone finds himself in legal trouble, they haven't harmed anyone,
right.
Because the wool's been pulled over our eyes so much already in the past, as you mentioned earlier, are they going to be able to get a fair trial and be able to get, through this? Do they still have to play by those rules, or are they just kind of disregarding the rules these days?
Well, unfortunately, that's a good question, by the way. Unfortunately, a lot of times if you go in by yourself and you know these things and you try to apply them, you'll get ignored, especially at first when you're new to this. So the problem is that the courts don't like for you to know things, especially more than they know. So they won't take a liking to you. So it's very important that you do it a correct way. You do it respectfully and matter-of-factly. And, if they rule the wrong way, don't get angry.
If they do rule the wrong way, is there a recourse that we can take? Oh, did we lose someone? Jim, are you still there?
I'm here, but it sounded kind of weak.
Oh, maybe it looks like Jim... or John may have. Well, it looks like I'm still on the air, and I think I still have Jim. Looks like we're trying to connect back up with Jeff, so we'll give him a few minutes here.
Hello?
Yep, Jim, you're back.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what in the world happened there. Funny. Anyway, sorry about that. Did I miss a question?
Nope, we're trying to get Jeff back on, so bear with us, folks. It always seems as soon as we start getting into the good information, something happens with Skype. You gotta wonder.
Yeah, well, Jason, I'd like to think that we were important enough for them to have their eye on, but who knows?
I don't know. It seems like such a coincidence at times, and I don't believe in coincidence all that much anymore. But we'll try to get him back up.
Just to recap, I know that a lot of the same things that Jeff is saying here. And I'm hoping to. I see where it says call dropped, Jason, on my end. hopefully I can talk to Ron Gibson. I did like a 6.5 or 7 hour presentation for him, and he talks about all this stuff throughout the video. And I'm hoping that he gives me the opportunity to publish it. I haven't been able to yet, but what this guy is saying in this video is pretty much the same thing that Jeff is saying. His internet may have went down. I have a phone number for him if you want as a backup.
Go ahead and
I think I sent it to you earlier, Jason.
Okay, let me see if I've got that.
I sent it to you earlier his backup phone number. If you can't find it, I can probably find it for you here. I'm trying to scroll through the Skype. Actually, I think I sent it to you back before here. I'll hit it for you in a minute.
All right, looks like his internet might have gone down. So let's try to get him on the phone line. I've got it right here.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, good. Anyway, the
Go
same
ahead
thing.
and keep calling while I do the, or go ahead and keep going while I.
Yeah, the same thing he talks about is what I got on this video that I did the 6 or 7 hours worth of video for this guy Ron Gibson, and it's it really is back to back, and he's really knows the stuff. His stuff that he talks about, but the stuff that he talks about is the same thing that Jeff talks about, that we've talked about here with Jeff. It all seems to be accurate.
All right, let's try adding him again using the other phone line.
Okay. Cell phone backups, gotta love them. Sometimes it takes them 4 or 5 rings to answer.
Hello?
Hello, Jeff. This is Jason and Jim. We got you back now?
Hey. Yes, we do.
Sorry about that. Something happened where always when things are getting interesting, it seems Skype acts up.
Yes, it does. It happens a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so
okay.
I got a question for you, Jeff. I don't know what part you maybe the same theme that yours had, Jason. Let's say that we have like Jason said, you have an issue here, Jeff, where you find yourself to have to go before court and you haven't injured anybody. Would you call a private attorney general just like you would call like a regular attorney? Was that something they would come and represent you like a regular attorney would, or would they just consult with you and tell you how to do it yourself?
Well, you as a person, you see the attorneys and the judges, they want to tell you that you have to have a license to practice law. Well, we're not practicing law. Well, we are the law. We perfect the law. Okay? So that's why you see signs that says attorneys at law. They're at the law, but they're not engaged in the law. Okay? This goes back to wordsmithing and tweaking the words and everything. So they cannot have a patent on law. So in other words, everybody can be a lawyer. Let's look at the definitions. The definition of an attorney is somebody who returns property, takes property from one and gives to another. And the definition of a lawyer is quite simple. It means somebody who's versed in law.
Yeah, I mean, don't we have a natural law right to defend ourselves, not only, let's say, against some sort of a physical attack, but we have a natural law right to defend ourselves against a personal attack or like a libel attack or something of that nature, don't we?
Right, because if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, you can't practice law," well, number one, I'm not practicing. Number two, where's that contract at? I never agreed to that. Only somebody crazy would agree that they're not allowed to defend themselves. So show me the contract and bring it forth for my inspection.
Yeah, that sounds like something you. That sounds like something you're using a lot, Jeff. I mean, is that like it sounds like that's the linchpin statement. Show me the contract. I mean, is that literally you can say that? Show me the contract. If they can't show the contract, are you saying you're not subject to it? Is that right? If they don't have a contract that you signed, you're not subject to it by the law? Is that what it sounds like?
Well, let's look. We've already covered that U.S. code's not law. It's code. Okay. So you just said by law. Well, what law? Well, what is the law? What's the main law in play right now? Wouldn't it be commercial law?
Constitution, right?
It'd be, even beyond that, something that's bigger than the Constitution, believe it or not. And that is contractual law. What's the Constitution? It's an evidence of a contract. It's not the contract, not for men and women. It is the contract for public servants, however.
Now we've got
Does that make
It does make sense. We've got a question out of left field for you from one of our listeners who just sent me a message. They're asking, failure to pay child support. Since no one has been injured, therefore there is no jurisdiction and the presumption is false. There is no injured party and the claim is null and void. Would that be correct in the case of, say, unpaid child support?
Well, they're going to come back and say, you see, now you're dealing with other people.
Right. I would say they could make a case that the child could be injured by not paying it.
That's right. And that's what I said at the beginning of this. If you've not injured anybody, see, you might not be injuring your child or your wife or your ex-wife, but if you fail to support them in any way, then that could be construed by the courts and will be construed by the courts as injury to them. So like I said in the beginning, if you've injured nobody and if you're not in a contract, then what I'm talking about applies. And what I'm speaking of applies to 90% of the cases that's going on right now.
You know, Jeff, I never signed a contract with the IRS for them to take 37% of my wages either. Now that I think about it, I never signed that contract.
Well, no, you didn't. And if you go through the tapes of the recent directors being put on spot, there's I think it's on YouTube. Put forth, you can find it. But one of the directors actually admits that paying taxes is voluntary, and it is. It is voluntary because you didn't properly withdraw your consent, so they get to presume that you're okay with the contract.
So I need to send a letter to the IRS and tell them that I no longer want to be involved in any contract relationship with them at all? I mean, is it that simple?
Well, I don't want to tell you to do that and create enemies for myself, but if you want to call me and speak with me, and we can consult about it, because you're fully within your right to call and consult with anybody you want to about any of your affairs. There's no patent on the law. You can talk to anybody. You can have a special master come into court with you. You can have a first friend come into court with you. To help you represent yourself or present yourself. So,
is that right? You can bring a friend. Yeah. You can bring a friend in court with you, and they can actually go on the stand with you, or not on the stand maybe, but they can actually sit in the box with you and help you.
Of course, yeah. It doesn't have to be an attorney. Now, they'll always. This is the extent that the courts go to get an enemy sleeping in your camp. Okay, they'll tell you up and down that you have to have an attorney. You do not. Did you agree to that contract anywhere? Did you sign a piece of paper saying I will always have an attorney? No, you didn't. They'll even go to the extent of going, we'll provide one for you. We'll pay for it. Well, now, why would they do that? Because an attorney on your side of the fence is the enemy sleeping in your camp. Now, I'm not saying that all attorneys are bad, and I'm not saying all the judges are bad. Okay, there are good people out there that are judges and attorneys. Okay. But there's not enough. There need to be more.
I can't argue with you on that at all.
So how do we get more then? How do we go about educating younger attorneys and whatnot to the truth of things? What do you think there?
Well, unfortunately, the law system as it's set up right now, it doesn't help them. It hurts them. So you're not going to really, it's going to be difficult to untrain one. The best thing to do is, number one, become knowledgeable yourself. And then number two, pass that knowledge that you learn about the law to your kids. All this didn't come about overnight. They've had well over 100 years just in this nation to get things where they're at right now. And it won't be tore down overnight. But generation by generation, if we adhere to this living standard of knowing everything about the law that we possibly know and then pass it down to our children. You see, what's remarkable is that the way the law affects in every day, you interface with it commercially, contractually, but yet there's nothing taught in the elementary schools, the high schools, nothing. You barely get an economics class in high school.
So again, how would someone like myself start learning about it? I mean, do I need to start reading law books? Do I need to start reading law books that are 100 years old? Are there any websites that go over this type of stuff? What's the best way to start learning about the law to a layman?
Well, the best way is come to my website and hang out.
Well, what's
I got
that?
a lot of things that'll help you. Well, it's www.thepag.org.
P-A-G-G?
And it's THEPAGG.org.
P-H-E-T-H-E-P-A-G-G. All right, I'm putting that up in the website or the chat room there.
There's like I was saying, Jason. There's no real one place to go get all this information because it's been construed and throughout all over the universe. So, but I believe that things that I know and the things that many people out there know. But there's a lot of people, probably your listeners, that know exactly what I'm talking about. There's knowledgeable people out there, but there's a lot of people that are out there playing the game set by the rules of the court. And man, I just don't see how you can win that way. Unless you know these foundations that I have that I'm telling you about. And there's more. There's a lot more. But it's all easy. Once the light bulb goes off in your mind, in your head, all this color law, you're going to see right through it, man.
Well, Jeff, I don't doubt that you're correct. To convince me that things aren't what they appear is not going to be a very hard sell. Trust me. But my thought is, I think it was brought up previously. My only fear, and I say fear, but my only thought would be that no matter how smart you get, how much you study up, they're gonna dismiss you. I mean, you really do. Obviously, it's gonna sound like a dumb question, but I mean, the law is on your side, right? I mean, you have the law on your side ultimately, even if they try to dismiss you or minimize you. Really, the law is on our side, right? As the people. I mean, the law favors more the people than it does the state. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, it's supposed to be, but the law isn't applied with the right intent by the officers. Okay? So the judge is not necessarily looking out for your good, your benefit. He's looking out for his. And the attorney is looking out for his. The attorneys are all bar members, and they take an oath and swear to the bar. That's their first person to protect is the bar. So when you go hire an attorney, you're giving your money away a lot of the times to somebody who's not going to represent you fully. Now, again, I'm not saying all attorneys are bad, and there's a lot of attorneys out there helping people, so don't take it the wrong way. But be careful. You have to be wise and be careful.
Now, Jeff, it can seem like things are really stacked against us, and there's not much we can do, but our forefathers really kind of wrote into things a way that we can really make a difference. I was wondering if you might be able to talk a little bit about jury nullification and kind of the basis behind that and what it can be used to how it can be used to affect change.
Okay, well, understand this. The juries, the grand juries right now that are in place are de facto. The number one thing to learn is the definitions of de facto and de jure. Come to my website. It's right there for you. You can get it. Once you got that burned into your head, you'll see that a de facto grand jury is quite different than a de jure grand jury. You see, the de facto has pushed out the de jure grand juries. The de jure grand juries are the people who are put in place to indict criminal wrongdoing within our justice structure. Okay, and because they don't like people telling them what to do, even though we're their bosses, all right, we loan our sovereignty to them to do their job. And when they fail to do their job, we can remove their sovereignty and take it back. Okay, so that's good. You're asking me, well, you can have all this knowledge, and what good will it do you? Well, that's a good question. That's a good statement. And here's the answer. The way I believe it. I believe it's very important for us all to get together and learn and study about the grand juries and then come together and form the grand juries in each county, because it's the de jure grand jury that we're forming, and the de jure grand jury usurps or overshadows the de facto grand jury.
Well, now, if you do a de jure grand jury, will they provide chambers for you to consult in? Will they provide all the information? I mean, will they, if you walk in with a group of 11 of your neighbors and say, we're a de jure grand jury, we want an office to do some work, and are they just going to say, get out of here before we arrest you? I mean, what's going to happen?
Well, that's a very good possibility, but remember, the way you just said that, you said, will they provide? Well, no, because who are the real providers? The people. Okay.
I have to get used to that, Jeff. I have to get used to that, man. You're much more tuned in on that than I am, but you're right. It's ours. It's our stuff.
That's okay. We've all, I had to deprogram myself, and it took years. And, only in the last couple of years have I gotten a real good clarity on everything. So don't beat yourself up over it. Just, be conscious about it and fix yourself when you can, and then and things will get a lot clearer for you. That goes for you and all your listeners. Remember that we, the people, are the ones who form the government, and we are sovereign for the government. We created them, okay, and we can uncreate them, and we can change it the way we want. And I'm not against the government. I do know that we need a government, but we need the government doing the right things in the right way, and that's to protect the people, not to harm them.
What would you? What's the? Can people get out? Can people get out of these contracts? I mean, how can you remove yourself if people wanted to start removing themselves from some of these contracts that they may not even know they're in? I mean, and I'm just going to throw things out, like your Social Security number. Maybe do you turn that back in? What happens when you do that? Is that even possible? I mean, obviously, you maybe send the IRS a letter and say, I don't want to be involved in this relationship with you any longer. I'm just throwing things out. I mean, how do you remove yourself from these things, Jeff?
Well, that's a great question, and it can be done. I've seen it done. I know people who are on top of the system. Okay. And I know the basic structure of how to do that. Again, your birth certificate and your Social Security card, those are debt instruments. They've been securitized. And what that means is they've been monetized.
Whoa. Don't skip over that one. Hold on a minute. You got to hit, don't just, what now? Well, come again on that? Could you break that down real quick?
Well, your birth certificate and your Social Security, they both have been securitized. They've been made into money. They've been monetized.
I haven't seen any of that money. I mean, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but how come I didn't get any of that money?
Well, you're thinking right now. So since you haven't seen a benefit from the contract, okay, would that be an equal consideration in the contract?
No.
No, it would be an unequal consideration. So since there's unequal consideration, is that contract now null and void? Yes, it is. It's that simple. It really is. Now, they're going to lie to you in court. Some of the bad judges will. Okay, they don't want you to know this. But it's the truth. You think about it long and hard.
We should be screaming this from the top of every rooftop, Jeff. I mean, if people learned what you just told us and they applied it, this whole criminal system would come crashing down in days. You know that, right?
Well, let's think about this. We don't necessarily want to crash the system in days. We don't want to do that. We do want to correct it. Okay. I don't think correcting or crashing the system down will do us any good. It will cause more harm than good. I think we need to slowly form our grand juries and start dealing with the corruption one by one. And then as the others see that the rules of the game are changing and that it's not okay to harm the people, their masters, okay, when others start seeing that it's not okay to do these things, then they'll fall in line. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to ask you something on that here. If I make a commitment to get a citizens grand jury or a de jure grand jury going here in the Flathead Valley, can I speak to you privately and get some assistance on doing that? Would you be willing to help me do that?
Oh, of course I would. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that all they do is they're working hard to form the grand jury. So you may be surprised. There's probably already somebody in your county that's working on it. So I
That's
can help
great.
you get in touch with them. Yeah, and that goes for everybody. All your listeners. There's probably somebody in your county that knows about the de jure grand jury and is working to get it. And you know, he can put you in touch with those people.
So what kind of work goes into forming a de jure grand jury?
Well, the main. Let me say this correctly. There's a lot of folks out there that are on their own, and they realize that the de jure people's common law grand jury is the way to go. So there are different pockets of groups out there, and a lot of them don't know about the others, and they're forming, they're working their own thing. But one of the groups that I've been very pleased with is the National Liberty Alliance guys. It would be John Durashek.
I've talked to them before, actually.
You have or haven't?
I have actually talked with them on the phone.
Oh, okay. Good. So those guys are working very hard in reaching all across the nation here in forming the grand juries. And, you know, they need everybody's support. And, you know, well, the best way to go into court, in my opinion, is not to go in court by yourself. Bring 100 people with you if you can. And the best way to gain that kind of friendship is to start working and forming your grand juries in your counties. You'll get around a lot of like-minded people that all realize that our justice system has failed. It has a real big problem that we have to correct. And the best way to do it is come together as a community, peacefully and justly, to slowly turn the table back in our favor the way it should be. The law is supposed to be there to protect us. I mean, number one, that's what the government tells you, right? The reason why everybody should or want to be a citizen is so that the U.S. government can protect you. Well, look at where we're at now. The biggest offender of the person has become the government. Okay, so you know we don't want to violently combat them or anything like that. We just want to be stopped. We don't want to be injured anymore, and we want to teach people the right law, the common law, the real law. So all these statutes and codes. So this is why we have our problems, right? Because of that.
Well, Jeff, we're coming up here towards the end of the show here, and I know we'll be hitting a hard break here in just a few minutes. But before we go, I want to make sure that you have an ample opportunity to give out any websites, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, YouTube channels. If you want to give out an email that people can contact you at, if you so choose, anything you like, you have the floor.
Sure. Okay. Great. Okay, for everybody out there that needs to hear more of this and think you're ready and want the real stuff. So hit me up. My email is thepag@gmail.com. It's THEPAGG@gmail.com. And I have a small website. It's called it's www.thepag.org. And you can come there and just look around. And if you want access or membership, just send me an email and I'll get you on there. And I want to do a plug for the National Liberty Alliance guys. They've been working hard, and a lot of people are involved in that. And I am a supporter of the People's Grand Jury, and I do believe we need to bring it back. And I do believe it's a peaceful way to bring back justice and to keep the people being harmed any further. And I think it is a way. So I really hope it happens.
I have put their website up into the chat room. We should have put it in the comments as well for the video. Do you have any contacts over there we might be able to have on the show? Because I definitely would like to talk with them.
I don't, I do, but I don't know they're very busy, so I don't know if they want to come on the show, but they might. So I'll tell you what,
We'll contact you later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Well, maybe I can drum you up a couple of people that wants to, because we got a lot of knowledgeable people. We really do. Better than me.
Well, Jeff, is there anything that you want to say before we go that maybe you didn't get a chance to say, or a topic perhaps that we didn't get a chance to cover? As we're closing out here with about 3 or 4 minutes left, if there's anything you'd like to bring up that you didn't get a chance to, now would be a great time for it. Go right ahead, my friend.
Okay, great. Just wanted everybody to know that you're all smart people. You can figure this out. Law is not as difficult as they tell you it is. It is really quite simple once you get these basic concepts down. Once you get the basic concepts and principles down, you can see through any lie that they're telling you. You really can. It's that powerful, and it's not that hard, or I wouldn't have figured it out. So, contact me, and I'll help you the best I can.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge. And hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Okay, great. Sounds good. All right, fellas. Thank you very much.
Hey, Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.